Hey everyone, it's time to start our learning. Today, we're going to start with our first chapter, A Young Woman. First, let's take a look at this portrait. She's an undergrad from our art academy. She's a straight-A student. She nailed in the grad school after college. Our art college has a classroom with a big skylight. The light is nice and soft. It's perfect for sketching and painting. In the natural light, the light on her face is consistent. It beautifully captures the undulations and structure of her face. From highlights to shadows, the color transitions on her face are subtle and gentle. The well-lit cheeks and nose create the highlight of the scene. With its rich color layers, the background is a plain white wall. It's simple. This female subject stands out. The overall sense is strong. She has a serene demeanor. She possesses delicate features and elegant temperament. Her hair is natural and full of movement. Dressed in a kipao, she embodies the grace of a Jiangnan woman. When she was serving as a model, I once did a sketch of her from the same angle. Our undergraduate program focuses on the wet painting technique in watercolor and incorporates both dry and wet techniques by using the intermingling of colors and shades. Expertly employ watercolor blending techniques. Aim to capture a color tendency that is both realistic and refined. Capture the subtle color changes of various facial features with precision. Strive for a visually stunning outcome. I think this piece is perfect for the first lesson in our watercolor portrait class. Next up, I'll dive into demonstrating and explaining these aspects. First things first, let's sketch. Get a handle on the composition and ratio. Understanding the layers. Second, we'll tackle the color sketch. Learn the color mixing technique. Focus on color contrasts and combinations. Third, let's talk about the art supplies. Paint brushes and paper. Choosing a paint and color mixing palette. For drafting the final artwork, focusing on sketching. Wrap up of the painting process and course highlights. Next, I will be painting and explaining. I'll be talking as I paint. You get to see the whole watercolor portrait painting process step by step with me. Alright, we've got our paper ready and it's time to start sketching the outline. So, as we're sketching the outline, we typically decide the positions of the head and the edges. On the sides, we have the face and the hair at the back. We'll figure out where the chin goes. Alright, once we've set this position, we can start to see its basic shape. Does it align with the height and width of our girl's portrait? Once we have the proportions locked in, we can start to refine it step by step. We outline the shape with straight lines. Some painters do this, and others do this. Typically, when sketching, painters and students use this approach. using straight lines, so we use straight lines to define the face's placement. The face's placement is dictated by head's position. In most cases, this side we sketch narrower and this side wider. Now you all see is straight lines here. Using the straight lines to outline her basic features. When we have a basic shape, we start by gradually adding, or we can gradually divide the main positions within the original shape. Typically, the structure of a person's face is as follows. From the top of the head to way down the chin, the halfway point, which is usually the eye position. So her eyes, nose, and mouth should fall within this line. As a general rule, the eyebrows extend to half the distance to the chin is where the nose is. From the nose way down to 1/3 of the chin. Right here, around 1/3 point, that's the mouth's position. And don't forget the ear. The ear sits above the eye, or higher up. It's positioned above the ear. The bottom of the ear sits between the nose and the mouth. It's where the ear's located at. Of course, this can vary from person to person. Some people have particularly large ears. Others have particularly small ears. So there are some variations. We'll explain based on this general standard proportion. Because this angle is rather steep, I believe she sit relatively higher. It appears she's taller than usual in this pose. She was positioned as the model. So the eyes in the back are lower than those in the front. This creates a pronounced angle, and the eyebrows, the nose too, follow this curve. And the chin at the bottom too. We'll specifically sketch out her structure. Resulting in the eyes' positions. And the nose and mouth marking their positions. We'll first pinpoint them. So we'll quickly sketch out some basic shapes. Then we'll check to see if these structures make sense and accurate. And then we'll go ahead and darken these structures a bit more. Her hair's quite interesting and fun. There's a big chunk of it here. The ear's right here. On the geometric form, we begin to break down and identify the patterns. We're confident in structuring the clothing. It's crucial to get the initial placement of the geometric shapes right. Following that, we continue to refine the placement here. So, this means that you need to shape it well at the beginning. Because watercolor is so fluid, when we're sketching, we have a few reservations. Since watercolor is so transparent, we typically avoid using lots of dark lines for outlining. It's not like sketching that we can go deep with the structure. We might opt for a lighter touch. We can see its structure is enough. But there's an issue here. When we watch those online videos, the black and white sketch seems pretty light. Some lines might not be visible, especially the auxiliary lines that are harder to see. So, I hope you can understand. We watercolor artists often have a habit like this. Which is to create sketch or preliminary drafts, or work on the final piece. They usually keep their strokes light. You can definitely tell, but you might notice some faintness in the video. Of course, many online teachers intentionally make some structures a bit darker. So that everyone can see them more clearly. Now, let's go ahead and deepen some of these structures. By darkening it slightly, we can still discern the outcome. It now appears more defined than before. Her facial features are quite striking. I mean, this mouth. You see, the upper lip is rather full, exuding a robust, substantial quality. When sketching, we can also add some light and shadow, with sketch lines to enhance the three-dimensional effect. Now we're working on the chin. I think that it's small due to her youth and innocence. Her chin appears a bit small. I'm considering, maybe, when I go to the final draft, I'll take this into account too. Let's lower her mouth and chin slightly. After lowering them, perhaps by the end of the painting, including her expression and her age. It might be a bit elder than what we're seeing right now, but it also fits within our usual proportions and aesthetic habit. When we're painting people, we naturally tweak things a bit. Of course, we aim to capture his likeness as accurately as possible. Moreover, every artist has their own unique aesthetic sensibilities. And often, when observing a teacher at work appearance, you'll notice that certain aspects of their painting deviate from the model's original. So, there's still a personal aesthetic touch from the teacher. And the ear, it's coming in here. Then, I pause here before coming over. Did it has a pause here? Yes, it did. You might not notice at first, but you'll get it from its structure. It's there. That's right, it is there. Nice. So, these shapes are pretty straightforward. So we stick with those straight lines. These lines give a sense of painting. We don't need to match the image exactly in every part. We should aim to capture the essence. It should align with our certain expectations. For bold brush strokes, rich pigments, and seamless transitions. This is a classic watercolor painting portrait style. And I also prefer this classic approach. It's really into the technical aspects, especially in balancing water and the subject. We're striving to master this technique with precision. So, as you all saw, I was working on the composition. As I sketch the outline, as I add light and dark, I've made a few adjustments. What we discussed earlier was that I might lower the chin a bit. Not to make her seem older, and it's all about proportion. That's another catalogue. Moreover, the eyes have a strikingly clear and piercing gaze. So now I'm bringing the eyes up a touch. And I've boosted the reflectivity here slightly. Added a bit to give her eyes a more defined shape and expressive. This will likely be better than the original. We've established the placement of the facial features. Next, we'll add light and shadow to enhance its depth. We know that the entire face is in this area. That's the area around the nose and the face, which is relatively bright. The forehead should also be well lit, but the hair, though, does slightly obscure. The highlight on the forehead is actually right here, at the brow bone. This is where it's lit up. Then the levels start to shift. It gradually fades. So, this is our sketching experience. We can add some light and dark shading by gradually arranging the shading lines to add depth. This area is bright, and we can deepen the shading on the hair. The more skillfully you paint the light and dark shades, the more complete the structure will be. And it will also look more lifelike. Sometimes a painting is just lines. Or like a line drawing on paper. I always feel like it's not quite enviable yet. So let's add some light and shadow. So that it complements our subject, whether it's the overall shape or the details and structure. It aligns well with the content of our subject. So, when sketching, it's really more about the feeling. We can see how much intensity or brightness we can apply. To convey its completeness. So, let's take a look at the neck area. When we look at it in terms of brightness, it's a pretty deep level. Good, so sometimes we might think that the character's skin, the face's skin and the neck's skin, they're not too different from each other. They're all quite light. Sometimes the neck can be a bit brighter. Since the neck isn't usually exposed to the sun much. But today, because of the lighting, this is an indoor studio illuminated by natural light. So, the light and shadow dynamics are quite distinct. The light and shadow play is very cohesive, transitioning smoothly from this point. It follows a particular pattern. We've added some highlights and shadows that make the results pop. Here, we bring out the grey tones on the face. And make them brighter here. With more detail. And there's a nice transition. So, this is the other side. Then, its rounded arc shape. The general shape of a sphere starts to become apparent. So, next, we switch to some clothes. These clothes have a lot of detail. This is super detailed. This takes some serious skill. If it's handcrafted, then it's super delicate too. So, when we paint, when we apply color, we tend to keep it simple. Just give the main content a quick sketch. Since the focus is always on the face, which is the main subject. So for the clothing, we keep the lines basic. For instance, there are some patterns that are quite appealing. And we can't help but be drawn to them. Then, as we progress through the painting, we'll assess the situation. If it doesn't disrupt the overall composition, if we add some details, it really captures her mood and character's style. She's still a student, though. Her look is pretty unique. And I think the clothes will subtly follow the neckline. So as we start applying color, we'll decide whether to add, omit, or use the background to make the white clothes pop. Just like what we did now. So this area is dark, and this part of the clothing, which is in the light, stands out. Then over here, there's another shoulder. It's dark, so here, we'll keep it lighter. Pretty bright. This gives it a nice contrast. Now, let's get to the color application. We're going to paint a cute little giraffe to practice mixing its colors. How to achieve the desired color tone and hues. And also add some details, including adding some very dark colors, so that when we begin the final artwork, we might encounter the color combinations. In our sketch, we slowly experiment. This experimentation might be helpful for one aspect of the project. There might be some unexpected surprises. Because sketching is we're not under pressure. We can really let loose. And we can test out all sorts of colors. Once we've tried, we'll know which colors work best for the final piece. Now that we've wrapped up the first part, let's dive into the second section.